Episode 7, My Life in Letters. I am Adam, and I'm really excited for this lucky episode 7 to welcome Amuse 126 DE crew, Chicago born. How you doing, man?
I'm very well. I'm very honored to be here, man. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Oh, man. I consider you a friend and one of the coolest guys out there in this game. So it was like, it just seemed natural that we would get you on. And so thank you. I think it's important, that we document these stories. What you doing over there?
I don't think there's anyone better to be the one doing so than you. You've got quite the connections and a great group of friends. So I'm glad to be one of those included.
Oh, I'm lucky. What were you doing on the other end?
I'm sorry. I was grinding a little weed up.
All good.
I mean, you wanted to talk to me and get to know me, so
that's it, man. Yeah.
Get to know me,
yeah. From what it sounded like over here, you got some industrial strength grinder. That shit was.
Yeah, I mean, hey, there's only one way to grind your weed up.
That shit was crackly. What I try to do is start this podcast early on in people's careers, lives, way before any graph career, because I think that there's some really interesting stuff that happens like in our childhood that, gets us to this point where we're pushing so hard in our adult lives. And so I'm curious about your letters are, I don't know what I would describe them as unorthodox. But what I'm really interested in is what your earliest kind of memories are of maybe even pre-graffiti, but like lettering or writing or type or anything like that. Like, what are your earliest memories about that?
I remember at a really young age, just some like family life stuff. My sister was always very keen to drawing figures, people, characters, whether they really made sense or not. She was definitely drawn to like doodling people, which made me kind of instantly want to be creative alongside of her because we did a lot of things together as kids. Her working on figures of sorts made me feel like, I could steer away from that and I can build the background. I can make the house, she can draw the people, I can draw the lettering. And as a kid, I always remember the big thing that sticks out the most was science fair. Everyone would just print out hypothesis, title, purpose, all that stuff. And I always, for some reason, had to hand draw it. I was fascinated by making myself. So that was kind of like my first intro to lettering and kind of a way to stick out. And it made, kids always liked it. The teachers always thought I was clever. And that was kind of me slowly figuring this stuff out,
Nice. Did you draw characters too to kind of keep up with your sister?
No, for as competitive as her and I were, there were things that we kind of had an understanding, like if one does, the other doesn't need to. So with her kind of drawing these people, it allowed me to focus on other things creatively that I was drawing and trying to kind of imagine together. It's ironic, all these years later, she ended up becoming a professional makeup artist. She never really shied away from working on faces. And as a kid, drawing lettering and everything, I became a typographer. I never really shied away from it.
And so those science fairs, like what age were you then?
Man, I was a kid. Second grade, third grade,
and then what?
All the way up.
And I know you're about to have a birthday. I know you're about to turn 30. What year was this? Second grade?
Oh man, honestly, I can't recall.
Well, second grade, you're about 8 years old. So, what year were you born? You were born in
93, 94. Let's call it. I was born in the end of 86.
86, yeah, nice. Okay, so you're doing that, and like, were you said also like you were like a typographer. So, were you interested in like just all kinds of different writing styles, like cursive or whatever? Did you take to it?
In public school in Chicago, they stopped teaching cursive just before my era. I literally just missed out on it. I remember seeing like the old banners stretched out across the chalkboard with the cursive lettering and everything, which always kind of fascinated me because we were never taught it. It was just kind of there. My grandmother, amongst her career as a jeweler, she was a cartographer during the war.
Oh, wow.
So her attention to detail and the like fine drawing she was capable of, not that she was an artist, but that eye for like very steady hand line work, she taught me cursive. She was like deeply kind of upset that it wasn't being taught in school and really questioned that and really wanted to make sure that I understood it. And so I remember as a kid spending a lot of time sitting at the dining room table with her and kind of just, whether it was just doodling on napkins or envelopes, but always kind of teaching me the loops and flows and just the way it goes. And she had such a beautiful approach of doing it that it kept my attention. And for being very kind of hyper, hard to focus kid, and things like that, and little things like that would slow me down and really keep me fascinated. They've obviously stuck with me till where we're at today.
So you're the youngest cat that we've had on so far, and it's like I didn't give that any thought, that they just stopped teaching cursive in public schools, which I think is true today in a lot of places.
I know it's true, and it's really sad. I mean, it's kind of a lost lost way of doing things at this point, but it's needed. There's an elegance to it. There's a professionalism that I think kind of kids need to understand at an early age, that there are kind of, yes, let's call it levels to even just basic handwriting. There's
for sure
note approach. There's a way to write.
Yeah, and I think that you see on Instagram how popular people that do script, some of those accounts out there are huge, and I think it's because so many people, multiple generations, are so into that hand lettering. So
I completely. I myself, when I'm kind of scrolling through the Explorer or whatever and stumble across one of those videos, I always find myself stuck on it. I'm watching it.
Totally.
It just kind of happens, and I'm like, geez, I just spent 20 minutes watching someone write the word happy or something.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to look away. I wonder how then if you were kind of into type, when did you first? Well, it's really interesting you mentioned your grandmother. So you understood that there was some sort of craft behind this, which is really cool, and that you were lucky, I think.
She made sure to explain that there was a craft. Again, with my grandparents being jewelers, they I didn't have Legos laying around their house when I'd go over and babysat her and hanging out. I would have watch gears and weird, small, meticulous pieces that I would sit there and play with. So it was always something hands-on when I was over there, but it was very different and unusual stuff to kind of pass the time, whether it was sitting with grandma drawing or, again, playing with such little microscopic parts that, really kept me focused and calm and paying attention to what I was working on.
Yeah, dude, that's sick, man. That's really cool. So both your grandparents were jewelers. That's really interesting too, and we may get back to that, that attention to detail that is required. Because I think that a lot of I think one of the things that makes you stand out is your attention to detail. We'll get there. I'm sure a lot of people are what was Amuse's first sort of understanding or first taste of graffiti? Do you remember your very earliest understanding of graffiti, in the modern sense?
I do. It's kind of blowing my mind when I kind of sit here and think about it all and really lay it out with the fact that I grew up on the edge of Chicago and one of the neighboring northern suburbs. I was always a city kid. My dad worked for the city, so I had to live in it. But we were in a neighborhood that was very removed from real city life. And I remember as a very young kid being able to have the opportunity occasionally, because again, I wasn't the greatest student because of how, scatterbrained and hyper I was. My parents found that it would benefit to every once in a while let me take a day off from school and go downtown where my grandparents had a jewelry store and spend the day working. So I would sleep over at my grandparents' house, get up early in the morning, and take the train with my grandmother downtown. My family, my parents, we drove everywhere. I never really rode the train as a kid, except when I was with my grandmother. So I remember being pressed against the glass and seeing it on all the rooftops. I mean, it was everywhere in the early, mid-'90s until the Chicago, our mayor created a really hardcore buff, and that, took all that away.
Mm-hmm. So you said early 90s, basically, you were first starting to see it. Do you remember some of the heads that you were first seeing?
I never remembered some of the heads. At one point, my dad commissioned an artist that worked at an airbrush shop when we were real young. My sister's birthday is Halloween, so my dad used to work for the park districts and do a lot of work building haunted houses, and felt the need to over-the-top decorate our house growing up. I mean, we made the news every year for most off-the-wall haunted, decorations. So he brought in this mural artist that came in and literally worked with, white, black, Rust-Oleum, gray primer, and a little bit of airbrush, black and white. And this guy spent, a handful of days at the house painting these, those big 8-foot foam. And he painted 6 of them with this full dungeon scene with skeletons and piles of skulls. And,
Nice.
And I never left the garage, man. I sat there with him every day while he worked on this. It was just blown away. There was no sketch. There's no, the guy just went to work. And I have all the photos of it. I've asked every old school graffiti writer in Chicago that I've possibly gotten to know over the years, like, do you know this guy? Have you met him? Like, no one knows who it is. It's kind of this elusive unicorn type moment for me, but I have all the photos of it, and I can't tell you how much that inspired me and really didn't make it click like, man, I need to work with spray paint, but just the fact of, like, you can create blew my mind more than anything else. Just the being able to be creative and work on something and produce and even make money. Like, I saw that my dad paid him a job. Like, to know that you could do something creative and there's means to it. I was super interested.
Yeah, and so what did those panels end up? Where were they put? They were on that Halloween. Where did they were they outside the house?
And we had a huge big picture front window of the house you grew up in, and Dad would turn 3/4 of the living room into this giant scene that you can only see from outside.
Nice.
Let alone the full graveyard outside and everything that he would build. But I mean, it ran for years. There was always subtle ways of changing it up. We still have the my dad still got the panels put away to this day.
That's awesome.
I mean, they were awesome.
How do you think your dad found that guy?
Crazy story. My dad was a police officer for the main portion of his career, and a Chicago police officer. I guess he ended up chasing the kid down the railroad tracks one night, CTA property. Caught him and offered him a job instead of locking him up. My dad was always a pretty fair, honest, humble guy, and really wasn't out to ruin a kid's life over bullshit. Mm-hmm. And saw that, and saw the kid had talent, and it's kind of a weird thing, but at the same time, seeing that he was able to work with him and work it out instead of just another kid getting arrested doing graffiti is incredible. And
yeah,
the kid came and produced such amazing work for us that you could see that there was passion and appreciation for my dad, and he wanted to return the favor by being able to be him and express himself and do what he does. So it was very interesting, and I planted a seed really early on. It was the first time I ever got to see spray paint being used. Again, this had to have been at this point probably 94, 95 at the house.
Okay, and so you're like 10 or 11 years old, something like that.
Yeah, it's got maybe even a little earlier.
Mm-hmm. And
maybe it was 92, 93 at that point.
And so it was also the seed. I mean, it seems like your sister was already drawing. Your grandparents are jewelers, but your dad's like a blue collar guy. Was art like a thing that like you said, that was maybe your first time you thought or you realized you could make money off of this? Had art already kind of gotten into your head at any point already?
Not really, man. I really wasn't raised around art. It was never something, I never had the largest box of crayon, count. I never had, art wasn't put in our hands. So it kind of was just luck of different situations growing up that art presented itself, and it kept my interest every time. There's nothing that really I ever saw that art pushed me away. It was something that always made me happy. I think there was this chance at adventure, and you can create something that isn't there. And I think that's most kids being able to dive into some other world, whether it's in their head or some of them are smart enough to pick up a pencil and paper and kind of try to bring that to life.
Mm-hmm. So you see this guy, and he's got his Rusto. You've been seeing graph on rooftops and on the train line. Can you just walk us through your early graph timeline, like the very first couple of dabblings?
The two never stuck together with me. Like seeing the graph was kind of this subtle thing I remember seeing, but there was no motivation. There was nothing that made me be like, whoa, it was just crazy to see it. And then this guy was at the house, and then there was slow. I had a friend. I went to an after-school religious school in one of the suburbs, and there was this kid that I made really good friends with in 4th grade. 4th grade, him and I clicked really well. He was his father was born and raised in Pilsen, which was a South Side, predominantly Mexican neighborhood in Chicago, with a lot of roots. There's art, there's history, it's a really amazing place. And being fourth graders at the time, the only thing that was cool to us was lighting things on fire and blowing up firecrackers and, maybe trying to steal M&Ms or something. It was chill for us. We were just troublemakers. And the dad kind of hit this boiling point and was like, no, you fools need to see something different. And got us in the car and took us and showed us all this he literally just gave us like a day of mural tours on the south side of Chicago. And I hadn't seen that before. No one introduced me to that. I can't remember what was graffiti and what was just, imagery figures, and none of it made any sense other than the fact that it was really cool and something different that we hadn't seen before. A week later, he turned around and bought us a copy of Subway Arts and put that in our hand. Like, oh, I can tell you guys really like the murals. Like, here's a book on murals.
This is your dad, right?
Week, now, I was hanging out with this kid every weekend. So the following weekend after we got the book, which we were both captivated by, he took us to Home Depot and bought us one of every dollar can color and gave us an old door in the back of his shed and said, well, now maybe you can make your own murals.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. I mean, and this is the suburbs, so this isn't even the city putting this in my hand. This is just dumb luck. And then simultaneously, while hanging out back in the city with my neighborhood friends, I lived near a set of freight tracks. I was banned from the freight tracks as a kid, but now we're talking fourth grade. I'm getting a little more daring, adventurous. I'm out. I'm not necessarily saying where I'm riding my bike to and such. And started visiting the freight tracks, and behind all these factories, boom, there we've got graffiti.
Do you remember some of the names or guys that you were seeing back then?
Yeah, I remember a lot of graffiti from the old X-Men PNS guys in Chicago. I remember seeing things like Page and Chosen were painting a lot back in the day, especially near these spots. And without my knowledge of what they were doing outside of that area, I mean, these guys were killing it. They were Chicago Kings at the time and doing amazing work. And I was just seeing this small little, north side Cuddy area, dudes like that. And then there's this a new group that was coming around. There were guys like Here and Alotez and so many up-and-comers that were doing their thing at the time. I mean, these guys were teenagers doing it and laying it down. They were changing style. This guy, Jem, in the north, I mean, Jem and Alotez were really the two that I'd look at their graffiti and just be absolutely blown away by, impressed. And, I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And it made me look at it, and as soon as it started clicking and realizing, like, whoa, that wasn't here last time I was here. Oh, man, this is new. Or, oh, look at these cans left behind. Things like that. And seeing the pieces, these guys, like this guy Alotez was coming back all the time in character work pieces, single color pieces, and then 20 color pieces. Things with face, things with hard graphic, insides. And every time it was so different. And that guy really was the one that made me look at his work and be like, I could do this and I could do this better. That was just the mindset I had. Like, I want to do this and I want to be as good or better than this guy. And
I'm curious if, like, as a little 10-year-old boy, whatever it was, fourth grader, if you had any sense that there was a history to this yet, like that your city was actually probably in a third wave of graffiti artists at this point, roughly.
Yeah, this is just hitting mid-90s. I mean, when I was able to do my research and figure it out as I got older and realize how much came before, I mean, I'm late to the party, but I was so captivated by it. I had an idea there was more going on because of that book he bought us. So you could, and in the book you can tell that it's happening everywhere else. That there's more going on, and I was blown away. The kid that I grew up with in my neighborhood, that I was like, dude, check out this graffiti stuff. Look at these factories. I brought him to it. He was a year older than me. He was like, oh yeah, my friends have I've kind of seen it before, because he was going to a grammar school that was more centrally located in the city, so he was in a more diverse crowd. And I remember him at some point getting his hands on another type of graffiti book, and man, like, they're making books about this. This is so, we have to do this. Like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, nothing was cooler to us. We ditched the skateboards and we got bikes because we can go further. And I mean, I knew those tracks like the back of my hand as soon as I understood that there was, an adventure waiting.
I'm sure. And were you seeing also a lot of out of town freights rolling through with names that were a little bit different?
No, they were kind of weird dead tracks, in a while, like, we knew him as, like, a ghost freight would go by. There'd be these weird cars that would kind of just go by, whether it's in the middle of the night. I mean, I only think I saw him running maybe twice in the entire, 10 years I spent running up and down these tracks almost daily. No, I never was exposed to, like, the freight thing, and just seeing, like, we saw the subway trains in books. We saw that there were freight trains getting painted. There's walls. And none of it started making sense just until, living in the moment as certain things would open up and arise, and magazines would end up in our hands.
Yeah,
and a graph shop not too far away ended up opening up, and things like that really started pushing everything forward quickly.
And so, like, let's pull back a little bit. Did you, like, start sketching? I don't know how much you draw now, but did you start drawing a lot at any point early on, trying to figure out letters?
And I've kind of always been the same, that I've stuck to my sketchbook being outside. I paint as much as I do because I don't feel like my graffiti translates to what I draw on paper. I have a whole different approach when I have the time to sit and draw. So no, it was much more important for us to, like, keep getting our hands on spray paint, keep doing anything we could to be outside, because there was nowhere, between me and this kid Hayes that I grew up with in my neighborhood, there was nowhere really for us to, like, take the time to sit down and work on it. Looking through graffiti magazines, and I mean, it was, our push was to just be outside and figuring it out.
That's awesome. So you like never had a phase where you were, like, in black books all the time?
Yes, I've always had the black books. I knew that it was part of it. I had more fun stealing sketchbooks than actually drawing in them, and to this day, I've still ruined more sketchbooks by just filling up pages tagging than actually sitting there trying to figure it out. I had a couple older influences as I got older that really kind of hated on what I was doing. It was like, you got to slow it down, got to figure out your tags. Like, your tags are weak. Like, you've got ideas for what your letters look like, but your tags suck. And I mean, there's no better way to put it.
Yeah.
It sucks. You need to be called out on it. and I did. And it really, I've tried to dabble with everything as quick as I can. And every time I'd meet someone new or there was a different influence that was able to speak up, it was always like, oh, you need to slow down and focus on a straight letter. You need to work on your throw up more. You need to do this. So I've always been, as soon as I'd work on, a piece style, I'd be distracted because someone would be like, dude, but your tags suck. You got to get those down. And so I'd go right back with hand style stuff. So it was an all in all, like, figuring it out slowly together at once.
And you said you had, like, was that dude Hayes, like, a partner?
Yeah, we killed it as kids. He was my introduction to, like, skipping school and riding on the trains and tagging. I mean, I always thought it was cool to, like, tag on the door. And he's like, dude, what if we use these markers and write on the carpet and backs of the seats? That'll run longer. He introduced me to sandpaper. It was like, man, my homie said, try this. Like, let's go out and just use sandpaper. We got a million different types of sandpaper grains and just sit there, like, figuring it out.
And what were you writing? What was your first tag?
So I had Amuse really early on. It just kind of came to me, but I dabbled through tons of different names, man. I had all sorts of stupid names. My homie was huge on loving what Coke was doing, so he bit Coke's work. And the Smash from down in Miami, that guy was killing it with the freights, and there was something about his style that was really cool to me. And it had the A, the M, the S in it. I had a second grade teacher who used to call me Mr. Amuse because I was the class entertainment.
Nice.
So the name Amuse stuck with me for a long time. It started with the first letter of my first name, so it was special to me early on.
But did you you never had anything else that you really ran with, or have you ever had an under?
Yeah, I've had numerous names that I've gained a lot of, like, notoriety with in Chicago. Names like Gravel. I wrote Bayer for a long time and stopped writing Bayer when Baer was really starting to push himself much harder. I wrote, like I said, I wrote Gravel for a long time, and I've known Grieve since I was about 12 years old, and he always used to call me Greeble, which was a funny joke between him and I. And at one point, he really pushed me. He's like, "Look, man, you're piecing with one name. You're bombing with this. Like, nothing makes sense. Nobody knows who, you're just so all over the place. He's like, look, Amuse is you, and push it and stick with it and like make it yours. And that's kind of when I introduced the numbers into it, really ran with it. But I mean, I can think of 20 stupid names that I wrote things up, that I wrote just to write, figure it out. But Amuse was always something that I definitely came back to.
Like you said that you were with that dude Hayes, and were you guys... Oh, and he said that you guys were like hitting, you were like tagging on trains, like you said, carpet, and then you were talking also about like sandpaper. I guess you were like scribing windows with that, I presume?
Yep. Chicago at the time had just started putting, or maybe not just started, but they put all the plastic on all the transit windows.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, destroying the whole window with sandpaper was so fun.
Yeah. Then when did you were you hitting streets at the same time, or did you were you dabbling on trains to kind of get the guts?
I was fascinated by these chill spots because it was a great safe place to just figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was still room to climb on things and tag. There were rooftops. There were all sorts of things for us to figure it out on this old kind of dead freight line. And then he was the first one to be like, man, we got to take the bus to here and get on the train station and go downtown and come back and try to write on as much as we can. So I went straight from practice walls to being on transit and transit tagging. And then by the time just before high school came around, then I started to explore more, exploring streets, going to other neighborhoods. At that point I was meeting other people and older writers that were bringing me over to their areas. Check this out, you got to come by this spot. And it just, naturally began to swell.
So who were some of those older heads that were and would you say that they were mentoring or they were bringing you up in a way?
Yeah, there was this guy that wrote Elfer that I met when I was in 8th grade. He was a few years older. I just saw him again at Art Basel in Miami, so we're still communicating. There's 20 years into doing graffiti.
What does he write?
Elfer, E-L-F-R.
Elfer.
And he had these crazy sick tags, and Chicago has its own look of sorts with its hand styles. Kind of lost it a little bit, through the internet and what influences has come and gone here. But there was this really sharp, aggressive, kind of evil look to a lot of guys' hand styles. And his blew me away. Like watching him tag on paint, it was sick. I've never seen someone draw with Micron. He had the mechanical pencils for the little tiny. I'm still sitting there with a Magnum 44 trying to sketch it and get nowhere fast. So it was guys like him. There was a guy that wrote humor for FIK that kind of took me under his wing, and my freshman year in high school, he made me slam on the brakes real fast. He's like, you can't shit where you eat. That's got to be you tagging in the school, and he's like, you're going to ruin it for yourself. And help put me in a different direction. You got to meet some of my guys, and see what we're up to. And it brought me into new neighborhoods and made me start going to parties, and I realized this is the craziest shit ever to be doing as a kid, and I wanted to do nothing other than do this.
Yeah, right. And so I'm interested, were you still living in that sort of more chill, almost suburban-esque part of Chicago?
Yep. That was the neighborhood, man. I didn't leave that till I was 16 years old.
And where was the homie Elfer taking you? Where were you going?
So he was just in a different part of the city. He was still on the north side. It was a stone's throw away, but when you lived in kind of this quieter neighborhood where I did, anything seemed far or did. As a kid, your parents don't push you to leave your neighborhood. So it was on me to really be like, oh, I can sneak out, or I'll say I'll be here, and then go and check this out. As long as I was home by a certain time, it was cool. So
then you're starting to now get up in multiple parts of Chicago and on trains. Can you recall early bombing missions, where you really were set on what you were about to go do, packing paint?
Yeah, I spent more time as a kid painting with Hayes, focusing on how and what our approach would be than I ever have as I got older.
Can you talk a little bit about that approach back then?
from all day long riding the trains looking for spots. Like, we'd find the spot, then we'd have to get off and then ride it back so we could see it. Can it be seen from the southbound direction better than the north? And then get there and then go look at the spot, climb it. And I mean, half the time we'd climb it during the day and sit up there and like hang out and be like, man, you should paint this part and I'll paint this. And I mean, we were kids. I look back at some of the things we did, like, how did we get away with this? How were we we were just carefree, and it wasn't, we knew it was wrong. It wasn't wrong to us. And I think at such a young age, we were like, oh, what is somebody going to do? You know, we're like climbing a gutter at 2 in the afternoon. Like, what does it matter?
Yeah.
Like, oh, sorry. You know, that was our kind of mindset. So we put all this effort into it and then really sit there and nerd out on colors. And I remember I was all about the jade green Krylon, and he was rich plum. And that was our like thing. Like, I had the teal, he had the purple. We always made sure we had white and black. That was our thing. And we'd always try to, you know, okay, if you're gonna paint here and I'll paint here, we got to make sure our tags are here in the center. Like, we got to go tag on these vents afterward. There was always strategy to what we did and how we would enter, how we would exit. And it was fun. I mean, we were like little kids thinking we were like secret agents or something.
But I'm curious also back at your school, because you were saying that, like, basically, who was it that called you out on tagging in school? Was it?
Just older guys, friends that I started getting to know over the years. I mean, I've got all these weird influences. When I transferred grammar school in 6th grade to another school, I was having problems where I was at. When I transferred, it took me to a really quiet, way more residential, communal like neighborhood. Way different than mine. All these kids had like grown up together. The neighborhood I grew up in only had, you know, X amount of kids at the time running around. And I stuck out like a sore thumb. I was totally the new guy. I was pushed away by all the guys. The girls liked me because I was the new fresh meat of sorts.
Right.
And I went in with like a bad attitude because I left a rough school, and it screwed my like social ways of doing things up a little bit. So I went to this new school, didn't have the best attitude, and it took me a year or so to adjust. And the following year, my 7th grade, a 6th grader came in who had who had just moved from Poland, and there was something about him and I that clicked. I think it was something about cars, because I've always been a car buff and nerd with that. There was something about cars that made us start talking, and he was like, you got to come over and like see the like my toy car collection or whatever. And when I went over there, he introduced me to his older brother. His older brother rode Mister from Poland and had the dopest flip collection I've ever seen. Like things that I had never seen before. And I was fascinated by this stuff. And the dude's like, oh, that's cool that you're doing graffiti. And I like explained, like, yeah, me and my homie will go out a little bit. So this is, again, me in 7th grade. And the guy, you know, he's just like, man, as long as your stuff has style, but, you know, you can read it, that's what's important. And I think at the time I was still drawing real, like, doodly, impossible to read, you know, a million unnecessary squiggles and lines building letters. And he made me start kind of like taking that deep breath, dialing it back a little bit, trying to focus on letters.
And what was Mister all about? Did he have style?
Man, he had dope style. I really wish now that I'm older that I could see some of those to like make sure that it was the style that I'm all like, but it was dope, and it was something that I hadn't seen. It didn't look like anything American. I mean, the only thing I can kind of recall it towards is like old black and white twist straight letters. Like, it had that feel. That was the one thing that kind of stuck out, because I remember kind of comparing it. Like, man, I saw this new twist in this magazine. It looks like that.
Nice.
But it was different, and because he was like much older, he was cool. He had like earrings and a goatee, and like, I mean, it was nothing in 7th grade. Like, this cool older dude like does graffiti. I mean, I was captivated by it, you know. And I never got to like get to know the dude. He was never around. He was never at the house. He was, you know, he had just moved from Poland. This dude's going to figure it out. He had to have been in his late teens, so he's worried about girls and everything other than hanging out with a 7th grader and his little brother, you know?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting you mentioned his style, like kind of looking like berries, and you also mentioned there was a graph shop earlier. So I'm curious, like, you were seeing magazines a bunch in this mid-90s era, so that was giving you an impression of what was happening outside of Chicago?
Yeah, definitely. And you know, with having to pay my respect. There's mad. The things that stuck out the most for me and that I would imitate or, I mean, shit, flat out bite and try to figure out and paint and try to make that letter. And, dude, all those guys became close friends of mine. I mean, I was biting Lost from DE's freight ideas, literally flat out biting it. And I mean, I'm not only crew with the guy, I'm great friends. I was biting your shit, bro. I mean, you had the AM. And it was like, whoa, and you were painting big, and some of the trucks I remember seeing in magazines, it was crazy to me. And there was so many things that influenced me, and it's really totally crazy how much of that influence has become like my friends, my family, crew, and just it's all kind of meant to be, man.
Yeah, it's a trip, isn't it? And it's like such an interesting, it's an interesting small little community. We're lucky. I think we'll get back to that in a little bit. So yeah, I'm interested in so you're seeing magazines and that graph shop. Did you frequent that place? Did you go there to get what you needed, supplies and such?
I did. They were a hip hop shop mostly. They specialized in 95, 96, they banned spray paint sales in Chicago. So you can't buy spray paint to this day in Chicago city limits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was a game changer. But again, living far north, it wasn't crazy far to get to a Home Depot to get spray paint. It wasn't impossible for where I was located, figuring it out. But this craft shop, or hip-hop shop, they sold all sorts of mixtapes and CDs and record, but then they started carrying graph magazines. They started carrying caps and markers. And, I mean, I built a good friendship with the guy early on, and I'll never forget, the first time he was like, yo, we got this crazy spray paint in the back that we're going to start selling. And I'm like, man, like what? Show me. And it was the old, the original German Montana, the black can with the mountain silhouettes on it, smelled like candy. And he gave me a can of Planet Blue. And I had never seen a color like that. And the way the ball sounded when you were shaking it, that sounds awesome. Because everything about it was so different and new compared to Krylon and Rust-Oleum and American Accents, Painter's Talk. I was like, the guy's charging $10 or $11 a can, and then giving it to me and Hayes for $3-4 a can. I wasn't putting a couple of them in my pocket. Oh man, I've been a bad kid, it's probably a start.
It's all right, dude. You turned out okay. You're all right.
I'm all right. I'm trying.
I'm interested also. Your dad was a cop. How did you sort of navigate that? Like he must have known. He must have seen books and tags on paper and stuff. He knew. I mean, how did that go?
Dad was a career policeman. Worked for the feds later in life for a long time. He explained to me early on why he became the police. Because there was if you can't beat them, join them. And this is back in, my dad was an old hippie. Used to get beat up at protests and just pushed around being a long, curly-haired, dude-smoking dude.
Yeah.
He did it and went with it, man. He was one of the only white correctional officers in the 70s back in Cook County Jail. The dude saw it all. And my dad never raised me on junior. I wasn't junior cop to him. There was no, you got to be this, follow my footsteps. There was none of that. My dad taught me to defy the police, how to be a gentleman, how to be respectful, and how to keep your fucking mouth shut and not put yourself in a shitty position or screw your friends over or anything like that. So my dad kind of helped me every time I fall on my face and do something dumb as a kid, whether it was get caught, stealing change from his pinball machine or, just dumb things that kids do. It was never it was always a hard learned lesson through him, but there was always a lesson to be learned. And it was what I did to fuck up and how to not do it again. How to not get caught next time. So it was crazy growing up with him doing what he did, but he worked a ton, man. He'd work and then come home and work a second job. it wasn't that hard to kind of like hide it from him. He always respected me and my sister and kind of gave us our space to like grow and figure our own shit out, because we never like drifted too far off track, so there was only so much need to like be hard on us.
Yeah. And what does he think of your graph now?
Dude, my dad's my biggest fan, man. He's, you know, he follows me on Instagram. He loves it. He begs and pleads for me to paint his basement or garage, or he just put a new fence up on his property. He's like, you know, Merlot can paint the whole thing. He's down. He gets where it got me. He never ever believed that it would do what it did, and I got to, you know, let's rewind it even before the dude came and painted these scenery panels in '93. He would start making things from scratch August, September, getting ready to build to set it all up in October. And he'd spray paint the tombstones either flat black or gray. And as a kid, I'd be like, oh, let me try, let me help you. And we laugh about it still to this day. He's like, no, like, this spray paint, like, you're too young to use this. You're not going to understand. You're going to mess it up. And my joke with him nowadays is, man, you should have just let me do the shit and get it out of my system, and I probably would be doing something totally different right now. But this is me getting back at you for all the years you wouldn't let me, like, help. So I'll just use spray paint on my own way. So now it's funny, like, if he's got a little project, he's like, hey, you got a larger nozzle I could use? But, you know,
nice.
It's funny where it's come between us. But my dad's always been my best friend, man. He's really been there for a lot of, you know, stupid things I've done, and always been there to help kind of let me learn what I've done and fall on my own face, but really help educate where and how I went wrong with it, where to, like, you know, fix it or just move on from it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, that's the role of the parent, you know, if we're lucky. So, and dude, I for one, I'm glad he didn't let you paint those tombstones, because if you got it all out of your system, you know, we wouldn't be here now. And so I want to kind of get back on graph timeline a little bit. When did, like, things start clicking for you? Like, I know for me, it took a few years of dabbling before, like, things started to click. Like, I just started to understand how to cut or add a double line or whatever it was. When did things start clicking for you?
And I'll call it active graffiti as of '99, and then I was in high school by 2001. So by 2001, I was now, like, as deep into it as I had been. At that point, I had like a decent little amount of spray paint stashed away in the closet. I was around other writers. I was seeing what it was. Look, you know, going back to the working with jewelry parts and attention to detail, I didn't want sloppy looking, messy crap. And as much of sloppy, messy crap came out of the can and cap, you know, early on, I always tried my hardest to find a way to make it clean, find a way to, like, cover things up that would, like, eliminate an error. So by 2001, I was definitely caring about the approach of what I was doing. And, you know, mid high school, I was painting permission walls at that point.
So 2001, you're in high school. Were there a lot of writers at your school?
No, I went to the largest high school in Illinois, especially biggest public city high school. I got into a bunch of, like, very good magnet schools. I had great testing scores, and I went to this school because I knew how big it was, and I literally only went there because I wanted to meet graffiti writers, man. I threw a lot of good education away to hope to just, like, meet writers and figure this stuff out. And when I went to that school, the time, it was just a bad era, man. There were dudes graduating that were seniors that were dope and got it and understood it, which are Ben Stowe at this point. And then once that senior class left after my freshman year, there was nobody. It was a couple of us trying to figure it out. So it took to a lot of outside sources having to, like, inspire, educate, you know, mentor.
And so were you, like, were you in DE yet?
Now, Morgan had gone to school out in Riverside, California for college, where DE originated, and he got put down out there and came back. Now, again, Morgan was a huge influence when I was growing up, so at this point we're friends, and he was, like, educating some things and showing me some ropes, and put me on, like, dude, these DE dudes are coming to Chicago. And at the time, Morgan had DE up all over the place, and he was here by himself, but he repped it super hard. He was hyped to be in, like, a big crew, let alone a California down on it. And, you know, me being kind of his underling was like, this is awesome. You know, I was blown away by it. And hit me with those, these D's are coming to town. You got to meet them. So I met them, and I've not lost touch. You know, I've never lost touch. I got down in 08, 09, I think. That's family.
How did you know Morgan?
Morgan was one of those writers that was painting with, like that guy Lopez here, Hamed, and anyone. And these guys were dope. And the way Morgan separated himself from some of these others I just mentioned was the way he painted size. Like, the way he would take up space. It was unnecessary, but it was always this awesome approach in how he would do it. Or I remember he painted this one piece that he labeled Scrapper's Delight. And it had every color spray paint in it, and it worked. It was awesome. And so there was something about him that was the way he tagged. He always had a billion different side names and would be up with it. And so I was like, man, and I would tell him, like, or when I, as I got to meet him and hang with him over the years, like, man, did you ever see this guy's stuff? And he's like, yeah, that was me. Or like, oh yeah, I wrote that. It was crazy. So one day on those tracks that I had grown up with, there were all different spots along, as you worked your way south. And that dude Elfer hit me up. I had a cell phone. He had a phone. Called me and was like, you're never going to believe this. Your boy Morgan's painting the bridge right now. And, like, I knew exactly what spot he was talking about. And I guarantee you he was probably like, hello? Like, I think I left my bed on the phone and bolted out the door and, like, ran all the way to the spot and, like, showed up exhausted. Like, what's up, man? Like, fancy running into you here. So Alfred left, and I was hanging out with Morgan and this girl he was dating at the time. And some dude, like, rolled up on an ATV, and I guess at the time Morgan had a case that he was dealing with, and he was gone, man. Like, disappeared into the woods, never to be seen again. And it's just me and dude's girlfriend standing there, like, and she's like, oh, don't worry, he does it all the time. Like, let's get out of here. And so she went to, like, wait for him at their, like, meeting point. I was like, whoa. I mean, the way I was raised, you can't leave a girl alone in the woods. I'm
right.
like, well, I'll walk with you. I'm like, I might as well be cool with her. And that was it. Like, he came back, met her at the spot. She's like, called me by my first and middle names. And she was like, he's the shit. You need to hang out with him. Like, he never left my side, and he was a great company, like, waiting for you. And that was it. He gave me his number and was like, yeah, man, hit me up. And I ran home and, like, called Hayes and was like, dude, I met Morgan. I got his number. We're going to hang out.
Nice. And so you started painting with Morgan then?
Yeah, so I was, and he was crew with Lopez and some of these guys. So, like, it brought me right back full circle around these guys. And they didn't like one of the crews that I was in at the time and kind of, like, talked me away from it of sorts, but really brought me in a whole different level of family. Like, the one crew I was in was, like, all tough guys, bunch of knock-around dudes, always loved fighting, tearing up house parties, like, aggressively vandalizing. And that was me to a point. I was never a drinker. The party thing I only cared so much about. I'd rather be out tagging. Like, yeah, I'll go to the party with you guys. And I'd spend half the time walking around the neighborhood with the party was just tagging on things.
Nice.
It was way cooler to me. And dudes like Morgan and Lopez were way more hanging out with each other, throwing house parties of their own things with a lot of their own friends. So I was getting to meet all the guys they were around, and they were warm and they were welcoming and good, honest dudes, which separated a lot of the, like, scumbag approach that so many writers, fall into.
Yeah, and I was kind of wondering, like, what the scene was like at that point. Can you just talk a little bit about Chicago's scene in the early 2000s?
I still feel that I was a bit sheltered, and, like, it took a long time to, like, catch up and understand it all and, like, really grasp it. But Chicago was a tough city, man. I mean, I remember always growing up, like, couldn't wear specific starter jackets or even baseball hats at the local arcade.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's always, the gang thing was huge here, and I found a set of, like, white boys that were just hanging out, nerding out, drawing on shit.
I'm curious how, like, how did gang graffiti in Chicago influence non-gang graffiti? Like, did it influence you?
I don't know how much it influenced been there, and I think the influence was to not be in a gang. You know?
Okay.
Like if
Yeah.
if there was one influence, it was to not be in the gang and
Nice.
do something like graffiti. You know, as I got older, I really understood the history. I know much. You know, there were so many writers I remember either looking up to or just seeing their work and then finding out like what their roles in either in active gangs or back in the day things. So it was intertwined, as it would be in a lot of these major metropolitan cities. But Chicago was always rough, and it was always, you really have to kind of be vicious and determined to do something. Like if you're going to put your mind to it, you can get eaten alive if you're not 100% into something.
Yeah.
And I saw no other outlet, other than this. And I always stood my ground, man. I've definitely gotten pushed around over it. I've definitely stepped on toes and made enemies through it, and I understood it. It made sense. Like, shit is not a joke. It's not just like fun and games. There's really a serious thing to it. And I chose to be serious.
Well, and your work is pretty serious. Not even though it's fun, it's like you clearly you take it seriously. I want to now fast forward a teeny bit, especially I'm trying to be sensitive of your time. You're in high school. Did you write all throughout all 4 years of high school? Was it it was an
all
emphasis
4 years
for you?
Of high school, yes. I passed my freshman year in high school. I failed the next 3 years. They told me if I wanted to straighten up and take everything normal and night school and all that, I'd be 21 when I graduated. And it was all because I pushed all my effort towards doing graffiti. I threw everything away just to do it. But at the same time, parents divorce, custody battle, family death. I had a couple family deaths. Some more traumatic than others. Friends were dying. Going to such a large high school, man, we lost 2, 3, 4, 5 kids a year.
Yeah.
My senior year, I remember having a conversation with my mom. There were 30 people that I lost in my 4 years that were worth crying over, shedding tears, going to funerals. That's a lot, man. 30?
Yeah.
I mean, it's doubled. It's doubled or tripled since then.
I'm sure.
That's being in such a crazy, and now having friends all over the world, it makes the odds that much, unfortunate in that favor. But
yeah.
I realize how fragile it all is. My dad did the career he did because he was tired of being pushed around. My grandfather worked for himself. My dad worked for the city, and then never got ahead. It's tough, and I realized that this is something that I can kind of escape and do, and just let days kind of fade away as I was doing it, and I just fell more and more in love with it, and all my friends became dudes writing, and everything was centered around it. There was no turning back, man.
And so you finish high school, or you get out of high school, and then was it just 24/7?
Dropped out, got my GED, rolled literally with my class the following semester. So no one ever knew I got held back, got right into community college, and man, all 4 years of high school, and then I took a couple college level art classes. I always failed art class. And I wasn't bad. I mean, I was producing some decent stuff. I still had things in the collection that I'm impressed by. It was because of how I would approach it. If the task was to paint something this way, I'd paint it my way. If it was do this, if it was still life, I'd incorporate something else into it. I would always just make it mine, and to have people being that's not art, or you did it wrong. That was crazy as hell to me, which made me so much more defiant and sure of myself. Okay, I don't need school. I don't need to read about the Eiffel Tower. Let's go to Paris. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And I pushed myself to teach myself. My sister was straight A, Dean's List, model student.
Yeah.
Me, I failed everything and figured it out outside on the street, and I didn't fall behind. I get it. I get it better than half of the people kids that stuck their nose in books.
Well, so you took some art classes. I'm curious because another thing about you that I think stands out to a lot of people is your use of color. Did you study theory in those classes? Where do you think? I think you have a gift for color, and where do you think that comes from?
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. I don't know. I was always the kid that looking at Alonez's work and being I can do that, I'm going to do it better. Like, watching his stuff and seeing how much he put into it, I couldn't just paint something. I was never satisfied being like, oh, okay, I got an orange and a yellow and a black to outline. I wouldn't go paint. I needed background colors. I needed to always kind of like do more and add more. And again, it left my stuff messy and confusing for a long time as I was trying to figure it out, because I would put so much effort into detail and over layering, and it just wasn't needed. But I've always wanted to have all the colors, all the like everything that I need to do it. And I don't know, man, half the time I'd bring my bag with like a ridiculous amount of paint. It's like, well, I didn't use the red, so here, let me like add a halo, or just to spray it. No, I never learned color theory. There was nothing that I could ever like recall that was like major color influence or approach to how and what I do color. I don't know, man. There's something about it that I guess I get, and it.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly do.
Be lost without it.
You know, and like, I mean, I just know, just this last, whenever it was, when we were down in Miami, you had the trunk open, and it was just, you know, had to be 100 colors in that trunk, and I was curious if maybe you had like
and it's better to have and not need than need and not have.
Boy, that's for sure. That is for sure.
And think of how many people approach graffiti without the stuff that they need. I mean, there's awesome dudes that show up at walls that are like, yo, Adam, you got a can of black. Like, how do you not show up to a wall with a can of black, bro? Like, you got to have it.
Yeah.
And I kind of have, for as like outgoing and entertaining as I could be, I have this weird like introverted thing. Like, I rely on myself, man. I can't rely on others, and you know, life proves that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, friends are always there for you, but you got to do things yourself, man. I put my own underwear on, so I bring all the spray that I need for the day.
I got you. Yeah, I hear that. You know, and I'm interested because like it's true. You know, you have to like do things for yourself, and you know, I also look at your Instagram sometimes. You know, I'm kind of impressed with sort of the approach with that. And I'm just going to jump a little bit into like how the internet has kind of played a role in your career, and how Instagram maybe particularly has played a role. Can you talk a little bit about how you present everything online?
Yeah, I'm grateful to say that the graffiti that when I started doing it was pre-internet, so that's not what motivated me to do it. It was books and magazines, and actually seeing it and finding it. And as the internet slowly just kind of popped up at that point, there were things like 12 ounce and art crimes, and there was a local one in Chicago. We had the ABC forums, which is an old school graffiti crew out of Chicago, and then these AEK 3FK crew guys started this thing called Hothead, and it was just a giant forum of photos. And so I nerded out more on Chicago graffiti before I ever started figuring out what other dudes were doing. You know, magazines were my source to like the West Coast, East Coast, other country graffiti. And the stuff I would look at was Chicago stuff. And I learned all my Chicago history through that. I questioned friends. I brought it up to older, like, who's this? What was this? Like, damn, this dude had style. What happened to him? You know? And figured all that out. The internet was always something that, like, as much people talk shit about it. I mean, I was the age group of the internet, so watching it and figuring it out and being on it, it just kind of went hand in hand. It was part of it. And then it became so accessible. I mean, you can see it. You travel the world through graffiti on the internet. I mean, you'd be an idiot to say that it wasn't influential or motivating or, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I presume a lot of people contact you for work through... probably directly through your Instagram account.
Yeah, the Instagram thing's crazy, man. I had a booming account, and I lost that at some point. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to deal with Instagram. It's a nightmare.
Oh, so I was always curious about that, because you did have that account when I first met you. Then it was gone. So you deleted it, and we were like, you kind of swore off Instagram?
I had a relationship end, and there's this inkling suspicion that she had, the ex had something to do with it getting shut down and removed, and it was kind of like a deep breath for me. It was a way to like clear my head and walk away from it. I mean, beginning of 2011 or end of 2010, I caught a crazy transit case. Beginning of 2011, I caught a crazy drug case and fought it for about 5 years and dealt with that, and that made me really have to like be wise with my approach illegally. I painted so much permission walls that it was. I mean, the last 5 years are probably the most notable for me, and that's because I spent so much time painting. That was the only thing that kept my head on straight while I was dealing with it, and it made me just figure it out more, and I got it, you know, and it was awesome. I'm grateful for it because as soon as that ended and I got my passport back and I got my life and freedom back, I was able to just run wild with all this practice that I put in. You know, I was able to travel and show up in other cities and do that, and it just came so easy and natural at that point because it was all I had been working on.
Yeah. People would probably already wondering, like, why hasn't he asked about Merlot? So, I mean, you told me that you met Merlot down at Basel, and that was kind of a cool thing because you guys go down there, and it's a special thing, I guess, for you guys because you met down there. Can you just talk a little bit about now having a partner who is your girlfriend? Because that's unique. There's not that many kind of couples out there doing it. What's it like for you guys?
It was crazy, man. Like, you know, to start it, I had, you know, the relationship before, I had kind of created like an alter ego for her, and like I just did all the graffiti. It just gave me a reason to, like, you know, continue tagging. I'd throw me up, I'd throw her up, and I built this kind of like partnership in my head because it was entertaining to me to have what felt like two personalities, even though it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was so fortunate to meet Merlot, and I mean it was like a blessing. When I met her and she was established, she was on her own thing. It wasn't the graffiti that attracted us, like that. You know, that was the world that brought us together. But we hit it off as people. I wasn't introduced to her as a writer. I didn't know that she wrote Merlot. We hit it off, and the amount of time we invested spending on the phone and getting to know one another, it was life related, man. I wasn't sitting there like there's nothing less cool than talking to a girl when you're getting to know her than talking about graffiti. You know, even though she was into it, it just wasn't the topic. It wasn't important to us, and we worked our way through life and understood each other. And her first trip to Chicago when she came to visit, I made all this effort to get a wall together, and it was the middle of winter, and it sucked, and there was no need to paint, but we were dying to paint together. And I remember early into it, I'm pretty sure we were working on our fill, and I said something like, okay, well, when you're done with that, like, we'll nail in the background, all that in together, and the outlines on. And she just gave me this crazy look and was like, well, that's how you do it, but that's not how I do it.
Nice.
And man, I slammed on the brakes immediately. I mean, I still hold on to it. I mess with her about it today. Like, it put me in my place right away. There was no room for me to teach, school, one up, be above. There was nothing in that. I had to just be like, okay, I'm going to do me, she's going to do her, and let's see how it works together. And it was a little, you know, I wouldn't be truthful if I wouldn't say there were some, like, awkward spraying times trying to figure it out and understand each other. And because we spent so much effort, like, getting to know one another, that graffiti just started to work better and better and better as we got to know each other.
And now, how long have you guys been painting together?
And about 2 years now.
Yeah, and there's like, you guys have this.
We spent a long distance year apart where we would just meet up in other cities, her city, my city, and paint. You know, get a weekend together or get to hang, and then we've lived together for a full year now. So it's been a lot.
Yeah, and
a lot of graffiti together.
It's just really interesting, man. You know, like, I'm sure people wonder, it's like, what's the pillow talk like between those two? You know, is it like you're laying down and you're like, oh man, I just had this ill idea for a fill-in, and she's like, oh, that's crazy because I'm so tired, but I was just thinking of this background concept. Like, I think a lot of people wonder. You don't have to talk about it because that's personal, but I just think it's cool, man. It's really interesting and unique.
It's super cool because honestly, we all know the, like, behind the scenes sitting on Instagram, the little things that trigger you from others, like, oh man, this motherfucker did this, or like, can you believe this comment, or like little things, and not to just look at your girl and have to be like, man, this fucking guy won ABC 123. She knows this dude.
Yeah.
Or like knows of him. This isn't like me trying to educate my girlfriend about the graffiti world that I'm addicted to. This is someone with an addiction as well that we can sit here and like like, man, can you believe he said, and like nerd out about it, and it helped, through her and all her experience. She introduced me to a bunch of new friends, and I've made a lot of friends through graffiti, through her contacts and what she's known and done. I met Persuade through her.
Nice.
So it's and then through him and I painting, that helped you guys reconnect.
Exactly. Yeah, which was so awesome.
It's a weird world. And
yeah.
then she's also, and had the flip of it. She's gotten to meet a bunch of my friends and see my approach on doing things, and we've built a hell of a system together. And
and now it's kind of taken on a new form with this Alphabet Monsters thing. And again, we're going to have to do a part 2 with you, just like with Persuade. But if maybe we can wrap up this first episode by you telling us a little bit about Alphabet Monsters and what's the whole deal with that.
So the cool thing about that is there's a couple other graffiti crews or graffiti couples that are out there, and they've really identified themselves individually and as cells together of sorts. But it's always very like two names. Then you got people like Cian and Chlor doing the 1-2-3 clan, and that's just kind of their little packaged together thing, which was much more alluring to her and I. She's an art director with what she does. I'm an art director, self-appointed in my own world, and we have a vision for what we want to do, man. There's an approach to how we paint our walls. You can always tell that there's like a little bit more effort put in, whether it's needed or not. There's a standard to how we paint. And instead of just being Amuse 126 and Merlot, we wanted people to really understand that there was something together, and it's a package. So while the Amuse 126 thing has its own fan base and identity, and Merlot has her own identity, and we can both equally pull our own work. My first name starts with A, her first name starts with M. She writes Merlot, I write Amuse. We needed something in the AM thing. I throw up the AM. We just really wanted to make it like us. And so we went through a million like dumb AM spell outs and figured out Alphabet Monsters. And I always start with it as it's something cute. Like it just sounds fun. But it's also there's that it has that backbone. It has its way to be intimidating if it needs to. Like there's the good and evil to it. There's the happy dark side. It's all together. It's everything. It's kind of our life, and it's our way of packaging ourselves together to just be us. And so if you like my work and you like her work, the work that we're going to start doing together is really dope. We've got some really cool shit coming up.
And do you ever think that you'll cut the Amuse 126 Instagram handle and just put everything into the Alphabet Monsters and like brand it heavily like that?
No. We'll always kind of have our own unique identities, and I think that's really why people appreciate the Alphabet Monster stuff, is because they follow us. They know what we're doing. They know what we're up to. They know how unique and different we are. So when it comes to the Alphabet Monster stuff, and another thing with that is we created it to be able to kind of like leak out other work, whether it's computer design work or mural job commission stop projects. It's a chance for us to kind of show a little bit of other things that we work on that we wouldn't put on Merlot Instagram or Amuse Instagram. Okay. I mean, I'm a direct reflection upon her, and as she me. I don't, I have to think through what my approach is a lot of times and how I present the work that I do, because, she's a part of it. She's attached to it, and it's really awesome. I'm fortunate to be in that situation, but it's something that we both have to think through. So Amuse enables me to still kind of be me, and then the Alphabet Monsters thing allows us to be us and really, be on the same page as far as what we're offering, what we're giving out, how we're selling it, how we're, doing what we do.
Yeah, and
all for,
then
$1,
and it gives you that chance to like have that sort of alter ego or just multiple personality thing online, which is useful. It's a benefit,
which is needed. I mean, it's called the web for a reason, man. You can create as much as you want, and I always say don't believe everything you see online. It's not always what you think it is. And so you kind of either fake it till you make it, or choose your own adventure, and the internet is very good at allowing you to kind of take a chance. And that's what we did with the Alphabet Monsters. We wanted to just be like, hey, let's just, instead of making now the Amuse and Merlot Instagram page,
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lot to get somebody to now want to follow another account of ours, let alone we don't follow anyone on that account. That's our, like, just us. It's our thing. And it's not to push anyone away. I mean, anyone that knows us or meets us along our travels, we are nice and welcoming and warm to people. And,
yeah.
I mean, we're not here to, play the dick role like, others tend to fall into.
No, you definitely not. You guys are super, super generous. I say that from firsthand experience, and it's one of the things that it distinguishes you.
You owe me that $50, by the way.
Yo, I'll get it. Check it, dude. This has been fresh, man, and we will do part 2 because we basically jumped from when you graduated high school straight into alphabet monsters, basically. So there's a lot to talk about, but I'm really
serious bad boy time in between.
I'm saying, dude, I want to hear more about that. I know people want to hear more about your bombing. They want to hear about that case you caught with the transit, but we're not going to get into that today. I gotta thank you again, man. This has been great.
Oh, man, and it's an honor to be able to work together with you. You're a huge inspiration, as I said from early on. And sorry I bit your work, but I'm grateful to be your friend.
Yo, man, I'm grateful for the friendship as well, and hopefully we'll be painting something pretty soon. Tell us how we can contact you, how we can hire you, or just find you online. Where can we reach you?
Man, the one thing you can start with is checking out my Instagram. That's AMUSE.126. That's for the Instagram. I have a website. That's 126. The numbers 126digital.com. My email address is 126digital@gmail.com. I'm out here. I mean, if you need me, you can find me. I'm down to work. Let's figure it out.
Dope.
I'm here for fun.
Awesome. Thanks, homie.
Much love. Much love.
You've just been listening to My Life in Letters with Amuse 126, a podcast dedicated at documenting the story of graffiti artists. Recorded live every single week from Bushwick, Brooklyn. My name is Adam Fujita, and my producer and engineer is UziEgo.